Hey.
All right, so I'm here with Bart Scholtissen, and
Yeah,
thank you for being on this interview. I appreciate it.
likewise. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, of course. And so, just a little introduction about Bart here. Bart and I met at the instructor's course for the Wim Hof Academy. Bart is an instructor trainer, so he was there training me when I was getting my master's certification. Those who don't
Yeah,
know who Wim Hof is, definitely check him out. He's making big changes in health and wellness, but also mindset, and it's extremely impactful for everybody's life that I've ever introduced it to. And
yeah,
so, Bart has a PhD in neuropsychology, and like I mentioned, he's an instructor, but you're also into lifestyle hacking. You're an outdoor lover, nature lover, and one of the things that I loved about what
yeah,
your bio says is that you're kind of bridging the gap between evidence-based and experience-based, and
yeah,
this is one of the things that I really want to talk to you about because there's so many people and they're just all about science, 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 and I live in a world that's results based, and science plays a big role in what I do, but it doesn't always apply in the real world.
yeah,
And so you have to use like foundational principles, but then at the same time, kind of manipulate those variables to make it work in reality. And so
yeah,
that's kind of what I'm interested to talk to you about, and just get into your story about you were you were working as a neuroscientist, correct? And then you got some type of burnout going on, and then tell me the story, tell me the background of how you got into the Wim Hof
yeah. Well, that's actually not all that complex. I was indeed this. I had my PhD. I got my PhD in 2005, working in science as a neuropsychologist, neuroscientist, doing research into Parkinson's disease, both in a human situation and basic neuroscience, so animal experiments. That was my life, my reality at that time and point. And I thought that was the reality because my entire system was that world. I didn't know that there were other things. And well, I just kept on working in that field, kept on training the new psychologists, doing research, reading scientific literature, because that's what you do when you're in science. And yeah, at a certain time and point, I just sort of, in this high intensity world where you are juggling all kinds of balls, keeping all kinds of balls up in the air, I started losing balls and I started losing control over the situation I was in. And at first, it's okay. You just let go of one or two balls, and then you just keep on juggling, keep on playing. But at a certain time and point, I wasn't able to do that anymore. I would just get in my car in the morning, go off to work, sit behind my laptop, and sort of get out of there again at the end of the day, not having done very much, and then feeling guilty about that. So I couldn't really, keep on going, keep on doing things that I thought I loved to do. And at a certain time and point, my body just pulled the emergency brake, and I got sick physically. And so it was, it sort of hit me. It hit me really hard twice in 1 week. And yeah, I thought, okay, this is strange because usually I don't get sick. I might, I've got 4 kids and I might get a cold every now and then. But sick, like I don't know what to do. And then also like the mental breakdown I had, which I tried to hide, which I did my best to hide for the entire world. That sort of got me thinking like, this isn't normal. Something's happening here. Well, then I went to the physician of the company, the university I was working for. I told him my story, and he said, well, we have a name for this. This is called a burnout. And it's good that you're here now and not 2 months down the road, because you might not have entered at that time and point anymore. And I was like, whoa, what's this? No, this cannot be true. Not happening to me. I've been trained to to observe behavior and see the signs. I didn't. So now I'm an even bigger failure because I didn't see my own signs. And I just don't have time for this, because we have goals, targets, deadlines, things to do. And mails to answer, important stuff to do. And he said, well, that's not your problem anymore. You're gonna slow down now, and you're gonna just take your time to get back into the balanced situation that you're supposed to be in.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, shit, this is excuse the words. In Holland, we're used to swearing a lot. I don't. In the States,
People are offended. That's their problem.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I was like, okay, now something really needs to change, and I need to go speak to my boss and tell him that I'm not feeling well, that I've got this thing they call a burnout, and that's where I met a number of my fears. Speaking in public, for instance, saying no, saying that okay, this is the limit, and I can't go any further now. And that got me on this interesting journey from PhD in neuroscience towards reinventing myself, and because that was all that was left. Life went on. The goals and the targets and the deadlines, they were still there. I got lifted from that, so I didn't need to work. I worked 50% rate approximately for half a year, which in science is not really 50%, but like 70-75 or something, I guess.
Yeah.
But life at home went on. Kids want your attention. Things need to be done, and I was just trying to hide the darkness I was going through. And at that time and point, I was spending a lot of time walking. I reinvented walking for myself again. I got a coach, somebody who guided me through this process. I'm forever grateful for that advice that my former boss gave me. And I was at one time and point, I was watching YouTube movies, just procrastinating, and I saw this movie of a guy with a beard swimming past some icebergs, and I thought, what's this? This can't be true. I guess that a lot of people that know Wim saw this short video where he's swimming in Iceland, I think, and it sort of hit me. I thought, whoa, this is interesting. This cannot be true. I checked him out. I didn't know that it was Wim. I checked him out. Appeared to be Wim Hof, the Iceman. I still thought he was crazy.
And just to stop, you had probably heard of him because, just a little background, you guys are from the same country, so you probably had heard of him, right?
I had never heard of him before.
Okay.
No. And yes, we're from the same country. We were even born geographically 20 minutes from each other. So he was born 20 minutes down the road. Right. But I had never heard of him. So I was Googling him. And at that time, I found out, this is Wim Hof. And so this was back in 2012, 2013. He wasn't as well known at that time and point. And then I started reading about who is he, what is he doing, and why is he saying this? Why is he swimming in ice cold water?
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
So basically, a couple things I wanted to touch on there. Do you think that your soul was not doing what it was calling for, and that's what caused some of the sickness? Or what do you think was the reason that you were feeling that and caused you to move on to something else?
Yeah, my old cognitive part of the brain would say something else, but I can feel this now. It's so the more the energy part is like, yes, I think that part, the scientific part, the being in science, scientific in the academy, was my life for a large part of my life, and I was happy doing that. But in the end, I sort of evolved and found my body already knew that wasn't the place that I should be in, which to me cognitively wasn't clear at that time and point. That insight only came later. Because I thought, this is what I'm trained to do, so I should do this, and I can do it because the grades were good and the evaluations were always good. Students liked me, and I liked what I was doing. Yeah. I thought. But still, something was missing. So I went on this soul searching. Who am I? Why am I here? And what am I supposed to do?
Now, here's a question for you that this is stuff just based on what I read. I don't even know if this is really 100% scientific, what I'm about to say, although I have read some science on this. Like, people who are in the science field and they're in school, there's a lot of left brain activity going on. Would you say that's correct? Like it's more driven to the left brain?
Yeah, I'm personally not a big fan of like left brain, right brain. I know that these are like things that are being said, but to me, this brain that's inside of here, that's one big network, and there is cross action and everything going on. But yes, if you follow the classical view, yeah, I was left brained. Although I'm actually more right brained, so more right brain dominant, maybe even both. So I was only paying attention to one side. If you would want to make it black and white, I was paying attention to one side of my being and not to the other side. And yeah, that was creating this balance in essence. So at some time and point, your body can only have so much disbalance, and then it will give you a signal, and a lot of signals. And in the end, I needed to sort of combine those things to create something that works for me. And well, that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome. So yeah, I guess that was kind of the question. And yeah, left brain, right brain, you're probably focused more when you talk about the brain because you've known so much and you study so much. You probably talk about all like the cingulate gyrate or whatever, like the amygdala and like specific parts of the brain that are being activated, right?
Yeah.
So, but in essence, there was an imbalance. Maybe it was too much focus on like academia when you were missing this part. So, is that where you think the Wim Hof method kind of brought in that part, that balance? Or how did you what was the experience you had that was like, aha, I know we spoke a little bit about this, Poland, but I'd like you to share your experience there.
Yeah. So when I was a student, like you were in the academy, I was in this time and point that I sort of found out there is no such thing as coincidence. We live on this living organism called Earth. Everything is connected. Everything is looking for balance. And things don't happen without a reason. And me finding Wim and actually our paths sort of crossed because I'm coming from evidence-based going to experience-based, and he's coming from experience-based going to evidence-based. So at some time and point we crossed, and I guess that's sort of where we met. And the method is it's not easy, but it's so simple. Breathing, mindset, cold, nature exposure, connection, that it just hit me. It hit me harder than anything had hit me in the years before, due to its simplicity. The elegance of the simplicity is there, and it's just like a good Italian dish. You have 3 ingredients and you create magic on a plate. And Wim's method, combining things that have always been present, breathing, mindset, cold, nature, combining those things into something which is more than the sum of the things, just hit me. And I was intrigued, puzzled. I was fighting with the cold part of it. I could do something with the mindset. Been trained to do that, and that's all fine. Breathing was unfamiliar to me. I've been breathing wrong for a large part of my life, so that hit me immediately. I felt something changing in my body, and I was fighting the cold for a number of days when I started taking cold showers, and then after I think day 5 or 6 of cold showers, I exited the shower warm, and that's when it really hit me. I thought, okay, what's this? I've just been in a cold shower in January where water is really cold. I come out, I'm warm. This is crazy.
So let me just start by saying real quick, I live in South Carolina, and cold showers in South Carolina are not cold showers where you are. Like I went from a Wim Hof retreat to Denmark, Wim Hof retreat in Spain. Denmark, and I took a cold shower in Denmark in the summer, and it was colder than the ice baths that we were in. So when people are listening to this, they're not talking about like some random cold shower. Like in the Netherlands, that it's like almost freezing, right? It's cold.
Yeah. In wintertime, I think cold water here will be around 5 degrees Celsius. I don't know how much that's in Fahrenheit, but
About 40. Yeah.
yeah, something. So that's fresh.
Yeah. So
It,
you
it
got
can
out
it can get colder.
the sixth day you did it. You came out and your body was warm.
Yeah, and looking back, I think I stopped fighting the cold because a lot of things we do in this Western society when we meet stress is we fight because that is what we've learned to do. You know, fight. And I think I just accepted the fact that it was cold.
Yeah.
So accepted the stressor at hand, and then my body I let my body do what it's supposed to do, warm up, and it did. So yeah, it's beautiful, this beautiful biological mechanism that's there, that hasn't evolved out.
So it stimulated essentially like this innate system.
Yeah.
By you resistance, you know, I say a lot of times like resisting, whatever you're resisting just creates more pain.
Yeah.
There's something that I heard when I first met with Wim, when he said to this lady who wasn't even like, she came with her daughter that wanted to go on a retreat and she had no idea what she was getting involved with. She like showed up on this retreat and like, oh yeah, we're getting in the ice bath. And she's like, what? And so she's in the ice bath like, and Wim goes, you have to die, right? And so that hit me. It was like, wow, he's talking about essentially ego death or acceptance. It's like you have to let go. And once you let go, the magic happens in the ice bath. And that's what happened to you. And it took those like steps to get there. So can you just explain a little bit about what is happening in the brain? Because people have profound impacts when they get into the ice bath, and they'll say like they get into a meditative state or whatever occurs. Is there, I know there's studies being done on that, but what would you say in terms of the neuroscience that's actually happening when people are getting in the ice bath?
Yeah, well, there's still a lot of studies ongoing, and there is still a lot that we don't know yet. I think there is more we don't know than what we do know. But to me, putting it really simply, is that your brain is a pattern machine. Your brain uses up a lot of energy to process stuff. So if your brain can produce patterns which are less energy consuming than novelty things, then your brain will choose for that, to just keep things going with the least amount of effort possible.
It's like least resistance.
Yeah, path of least resistance, but you're never going to learn anything new there. And so when you step into an ice bath or in a cold environment, the first thing that will probably happen is the fact that you have been learned in this Western society that cold is not okay. That so the pattern that is there is that cold is dangerous. You're gonna die. You're gonna freeze. You're gonna turn into a living popsicle or whatever. Right. And those emotional aspects of the memory, which has been imprinted regarding cold exposure, will sort of turn on all the alarm signals in your brain, and you want to get out. If you find the opportunity or the peace of mind already that you don't get out, then you might still go into fight-flight mode, maybe even freeze mode, because and you will fight the stressor at hand, because that's also what we've been taught. If there is stress, fight, because you might be able to win. But personally, and also in the studies that Wim did, like what we're showing is that the competition is useless, because you can't fight nature. We're an integral part of nature, and you will never win. The ice is always going to be colder. So there is no use in fighting. And so you need to leave that pattern behind, that you will win by fighting, by creating forced balance, which is no form of balance to me, and just accept what is present, and then overrule those old patterns and let go of ego, so to say, because ego is like, yeah, we're going to win. We're going to do this. Come on. Yep. If you let go and just accept what is, whatever stressor it is, in this case cold water or ice water, then you can be, and you can leave the brain, check in with your system again, right, and your body knows what to do. create balance, create heat if there is cold. And it knows to do that because we have been doing that for decades. So that was what was happening. And if you then learn, so you're learning something new, you're leaving your comfort zone of warm fluffiness, right. And you're going into this cold, stressful environment, opening up to learning something new, and then you will have this new pattern that you can use every next time you meet a stressor, which might be cold or something else, because your body always reacts in approximately the same way to stress. And you can use everything you learn in that ice bath in other stressful situations. So, and that helped me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the most profound things. Like, when people ask, like, what's the benefit? I mean, the benefits are endless. I mean, like, there are some guys, I can't remember his name, the Russian guy that says, like, you know, it helps kill cancer and helps the cardiovascular system, and it helps, like, dopamine regulation, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, it was the stress outside of the ice bath no longer became as stressful, because you're already shaking up those patterns, and all of a sudden you're encountering stress, and it's like, oh, that's a lot easier to deal with than before. But would you say the people with the biggest egos have the hardest time in the ice bath?
Yeah, I see that happening a lot. That people and people with emotional unprocessed emotional things, for instance, also have a lot of can meet a lot of difficulties in the ice bath. But coming back to the like the alpha type of guys and girls, they sort of in one of my first workshops, nice anecdote. In one of my first workshops, a friend of mine came. He's a school guy, you know. I'm a bit of ego there, and he said, "Yeah, I want to go in and I want to go underwater completely." And I said to him, "Well, you might not want to do that because it'll be cold." And I can handle that. And he went in and he ejected out of there in milliseconds again. So yeah, there might be a thing to lots of ego in the system working to make it more difficult to go into an ice bath and to be with the situation, because the ego is working on you so hard.
Now, I know there's probably, I don't think there are any studies on this, but what's your thought process about what is happening? So the person who has this maybe identity that they're tough and that they're going to win, they get in the ice bath, and then alarm bells are going off, the brain's saying you're going to die, and they can't overcome it. Because I've seen people like get in the ice bath and jump out, and they just like, no, I'm done. Yeah. And then they're able to get in, and maybe the second time is a little bit better. But is there an explanation about what's going on there? Besides what you already said, basically.
Yeah, I think this sort of sums up what I just was talking about. I think the patterns that are there, the ego that's saying I can fight this, I'm better than this. The dopamine, testosterone levels are so high. I'm better than this. I can fight this, and then you need to let go of that, and that to people who are really high in that fight-flight mode all the time, it's more difficult to let go than people who are somewhat lower in that system. So if you're always like going on your sympathetic part of the nervous system, and that's that has become your normal, then it's more difficult to tone down again, to de-escalate, and to find that that you're actually capable of doing that, creating that balance again, without the necessity of being in that hyperactive, ego-driven, sympathetic part.
Yeah, the next thing I wanted to get into, which is directly connected with what you're talking about, nature, is I know you're a nature lover, right? I am too. As you might have seen, I'm always going off into the middle of nowhere. But so what happens to the brain? I don't know if you've studied this, because I know this is not in your area, but this is something that I think interests you, right? It's like when we're in nature, when we're exposed to these parts of nature, the changes that can happen to the neurology, right? Have you read in this, or do you know what's happening there?
Well, I read some stuff about it, but also like more physiological. When you walk barefoot in nature, what happens is that negative ions from your system get from the earth are being taken up by a system, and that may reassures, no, that ensures that your heart, your cardiovascular system, breathing, immune system, it all works better. So actually, what I think is happening, not only on a brain level, but also like in your entire system, is that you're rebalancing again. You're connecting with the nature that you are part of. And the thing, I can wear a nice shirt and I can be in all these houses and cubicles and stuff. But actually, this is nature, and the nature outside is something that we are a part of. But what we have done over the, like in the cognitive revolution, industrial revolution, whatever kind of revolution or evolution that we've been in as a human species, is create further distance between our nature and the nature outside, which in essence is one thing to me. I didn't think that when I was still in science 15 years ago, but to me, this insight came a few years ago, and Wim helped a lot in that. So the more we are able to connect again our nature with nature outside, the more balanced we are, and the more the more at ease we can become. Shinrin-yoku in Japan, forest bathing is since the 80s there. It's a form of therapy which is widely accepted and normal. But here in the Western society, it's new and it's becoming more well known now. But so going out into nature creates balance, and so it makes you connect, because connection works two sides. Connection should work inside first and then outside. We can connect with each other if the connection inside is good, and that connection inwards will work better if you're connected with nature. That's my vision on things.
Yeah, so you're bringing it back to the connection and reconnecting with yourself as you connect with nature. And it's interesting you talk about negative ions, because it brings me back to one place where there's a high concentration of negative ions, I found out, is in waterfalls. And this is why people love waterfalls. And when we went to Poland, for people listening, when we do the instructor's course, we were in the waterfall, and people say, oh, this waterfall has healing powers.
Yeah.
And the healing part of it, I believe, is coming from that pure energy, but the negative ions. And I have to tell people that you made us stay in the waterfall water for about 10 minutes. And so this is part of instructor training. 10 minutes, we come out, it's 30 degrees out, which is almost 0 degrees Celsius. Yeah. And then we have to warm up ourselves using our mind and our body. And so most people, they'll listen to that and they don't think it's possible. Yeah. Right? So can you just explain what's happening there and how that's possible? So let me just repeat what happened. So in part of the instructor training, we go into a waterfall. We're all in together. We're using our mind. We're using the Wim Hof method. We're using the technique. We have to show that we're able to use it. And we were in the freezing water for 10 minutes. We come out of the freezing water in the 30-degree weather, and then we have to warm ourselves up with our mind and very light movements. And so what's going on there? How is people able to do that? Most people think that's impossible. What's happening?
Yeah, I think the fact that people think that that's impossible is a nice example of the limiting beliefs that we have gathered around over the years in our brain. And I used to have the same, because when I was at the edge of my first ice bath, I thought I was going to die when I would enter. And an ice bath, for the people who've done that, they know is intense, can be intense, but way less intense than being in freezing, fresh, streaming water somewhere out in nature. That's colder. But still, the body knows what to do. The body knows what to do, but the limiting beliefs in our head are prohibiting the body to do what it's supposed to do. And so what we train you to do is to let go of those limiting beliefs. And that's also why this exercise is part of the instructor training. And it's not about keeping you in there for 10 minutes. it was less, it was around 7 minutes or something, but it's not about the exact time, but it's, and you could have been in there for longer.
I timed it. Someone recorded it. We watched it.
Approximately, eh? So what happens there is that in this extreme harsh nature that you're in, there is no external heat source, so you can't turn to warm, I don't know, there is no sauna there is no warm sunshine, so you can't turn to external heat source, so you need to go inwards to reheat. Your system knows what to do. We can go into details like mitochondria bursting in activity, and so extra energy, in essence, extra energy needs to be produced in your system in order to create excess heat to reheat your body slowly and gently. And everybody is capable of doing that. It's just the limiting beliefs in our head, the mindset that we've been, taught to listen to, is dysfunctional. Is keeping us in this disbalanced situation. So what happens in this exercise is that you go in, you come out, you can't talk, you can't go running or jumping or warming yourself with clothing. No, you just need to go in, and you need to go looking for wherever that heat is, because it's there. And when we did that exercise, when I was a student, the outside temperature was about minus 15 degrees Celsius. So that's below 30 in Fahrenheit. Eh? Yeah. So that was cold. So the water was cold. We came out, and it was like this Kung Fu movie setting. Nobody was talking. Nobody was moving. Everybody put their shoes back on, because otherwise your feet, due to the humidity, would freeze to the snow. So shoes back on, and everybody was just standing there, horse stance or no horse stance, but standing there, breathing, going inwards, mindset, focusing, and everybody reheated again. And that's where, if there was some ego left in people, that's where they left that ego, because that ego is keeping you from going in, making that connection.
Yeah.
And it's a hard exercise, but it's a very valuable and wonderful exercise.
So they have to use the mindset, but what triggers in the body? There was a study, I think, done on WIMs, like intercostals.
Yeah.
Like, basically, they're hyperactive, or they start firing to heat up the blood and blood.
Yeah, so the intercostal muscles, so the muscles between your ribs. This study was done last year in Michigan. So at first, the big news was like brown fat activation. Everybody has white fat, brown fat, and brown fat activation was shown to be higher in WIM, or people working outside, for instance, like in Scandinavia. A lot of people do outside work, tree logging, and if they're out in wintertime, they have more brown fat. And this brown fat is brown because it contains more energy producing cells, energy producing bodies per cell. So and these things, the mitochondria, they're a bit brownish, and that's why brown fat is called brown fat. They can turn around the white fat into energy better than other cells in your body. So that was found first, and so we do brown fat activation movements, activities to increase the heat. And last year in the Michigan study, they found that intercostal muscles were also part of this reheating system of your body. There are a lot of capillaries in your intercostal muscles, and when you tense those muscles, so energy needs to go there, so oxygen needs to go there to make that to release that energy, and the capillaries that go through there just spread out that warmth that is being produced there throughout your system.
So the blood gets basically pumped. The blood's getting warmed up, and it's getting pumped throughout the body. It's kind of like heating up the blood.
Because when you're in a cold environment, the first thing which will happen is that your body goes into this survival mode, where it checks, okay, what systems do we need? And the further away, so you've got your core, so your brain and your core, but the further away from like in the picture in your background. So when you go into your extremities, you've got 10 fingers. You know, you can lose a finger and you can still survive. You can even lose 2 or maybe a hand because you have this other hand which you can use.
Yeah.
Same goes for your toes. You can lose an arm and you can still survive. You've got only 1 heart and 1 brain, 2 sides but 1 brain. So your system needs to keep this core warm, so it will shut off all the heat production or the heat distribution to your extremities. And then when you come out of this cold situation again, or you're in this cold situation for a prolonged period of time, your system needs to stay alive. So you need to spread some of the heat to the extremities because you still need them to survive in this extremely stressful situation. And that's why the intercostals come in.
Okay, you know what was interesting is when I first worked with Wim in Spain, we did 15 minutes in the water.
Yeah.
It was the first time I had done 15 minutes, and then we did a canyoning walk up the mountain.
Yeah.
And I remember we got to a spot where people were jumping off the cliffs, and Wim was sitting there, and I saw what I thought was shivering, right?
Yeah.
Like seeing this things like twitching and all this stuff, and then it hit me later on, like his intercostals were just like firing nonstop, and he wasn't shivering. His body was just heating up and heating up. So, yeah, the body is pretty amazing. The question I was going to ask is really like Wim. This is why I'm so passionate about it, because when I see people who push the limits and someone like Wim, it elevates everybody else around them. And then when you meet with these people, like we do in the instructor course, it just brings it to another level of like pushing it outside, connection, mindset. But would you say that that's the reason why people for example, I've experienced mild hypothermia where I actually blacked out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that happening because of the same thing you're talking about? Like the blood, basically the brain starts kind of shutting down and your organs are trying to save itself?
That's the definition of that's part of the definition of hypothermia. That your system just needs wants to stay alive, and when the temperature, so the ambient temperature gets down so much, or you're in that period that you're in a prolonged period of time in cold environment, then your body wants to stay alive, and consciousness is also taking up a lot of energy. So
that's right.
Yeah, this talk that we're doing is taking up energy. Our brains need to work in order to communicate. And if your system says, well, no, we need to shut that down a bit, then you might get these states of confusion, which are also the symptoms of hypothermia, mild hypothermia arising. I also had that once when I was in an exercise in Poland, and I thought I was fine until one of the instructors came up and asked me a question, and then I noticed that my thinking was a bit slower. I wanted to say something, and my speaking and thinking, I consciously noticed it's slower. I thought, okay, so now it's getting colder here. This is my time to quit. Now I need to get out and reheat again. Yeah. So if you're aware of the signals this entire biochemical factory is sending you, you can listen sooner, rather sooner than later, and always stay on the safe side and know when to bail out instead of keep going ego-wise.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard Wim say, I'm crazy but not stupid, and that's really what has kept them alive. So awesome. Let's talk about what you're doing. So I know you're not only doing the Wim Hof stuff, but you're teaching people mindset. You started your own business. And how have you parlayed what you've been doing with the neuroscience, the Wim Hof, into what you're doing now? Yeah.
So this is like this sort of transitional phase. I was fully in neuroscience up until 2015, approximately. Not fully. I started my company coming out of my burnout because I got this opportunity to reinvent myself. I found out that this neuroscientific part of my life was interesting, but there is more. I was only operating on this part of the spectrum while there is a lot more. Yeah. And I was finding that out. So I thought I need to do something. I need to change something to be alive now, to live. This is a one-shot opportunity. There is a beginning and end, and in between there is life, and I want to live now. So I needed to do something else and not go back into the dogmas and the expectation patterns that I was living in. I wasn't living my own life, so I needed to do something, and that's why when I decided to start my own company. Because Nicole, the coach who coached me through my burnout, finding myself again, she was helping me be me again, and I was so amazed by this. Cognitively, I could sort of check and know everything that she was doing with me, but still it worked. So something else was happening, and then I decided, okay, but you're really helping people, and I've also been helping people as a neuropsychologist, but this is actually you're doing real shit now, and I want to do that. So, and then she said, well, start your own company. So then I started going into my own company next to the scientific work I was still doing, and doing individual, so personal development, team development, helping people find themselves again. That's also when I sort of came up with my back to your nature tagline, so to say, because everything I do is bring people back to their nature. So I take people out into nature to get them back to their nature, and life is all about it. There's ups and downs in life. But then I take people on this path into nature, into the mountains, into nature, to get them back to their heart, and so that's what I do, and to me that all revolves around mindset, because mindset, and that's also because I reposted the Bruce Lipton video that you posted like yesterday or the day before, and he also says the thing you can influence is mindset, because your mindset creates your reality, and I wasn't aware of that when I was still in neuroscience. My mindset was fixed, closed, goals, targets, deadlines. And now I sort of opened up my mindset to, whatever is coming, and be open to new experiences and learning, and bring people on that path of self-development, self-empowerment, so that they can do the same. Because I think everybody can do the same.
Now, that's crazy interesting, because one, you were so cerebral.
Yeah.
And just like everything was cognitive, right? So it was all about the mind, all about the mind. Now you're bringing it into the heart, and you're using the mind to bring it into the heart.
Yeah.
And so I've heard people say mindset, and now I've heard that people saying heart set. There was thousands of years ago when I guess scientists believed that the heart was like the brain. And so now we're starting to like bring it into connection. And I don't know if you ever heard of heart math.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So have you studied some of the stuff that when you're in harmony, the wavelengths and the connection from your brain to your heart are in, a perfect wavelength?
Yeah. I think that this Western society sees these two things as separate things.
Yeah. And
physically, you can get your heart out and you can get your brain out, but I think that they are all parts of one thing.
Right.
And that this like your heart and your gut, that's a brain, but this is also a brain, and in essence, this is your central line, and it's one. To me, it's one thing. So if you're in connection, if there is flow or good vibes, like Bruce Lipton says. It's not only interpersonal but also intrapersonal. So if this is aligned more easy, and the other way around. It's one thing, and I'm doing my best to explain it to you, and you fully understand this. But I know that a lot of people might be watching that think, what's that?
Yeah, but yeah, that's the connection, right? So if you're out of your heart and you're only in your brain, then you're, like you mentioned, you're out of balance. And so when you get back to nature, we're rebalancing.
Yes.
So, do you think that's a problem in science? Because, like you explained, it's just like blinders on, and there's no kind of open to other ideas. Like, is that a person you would do your coaching with?
Come again, last part of the question.
Is that like, because you were there, is that a person that you can help? Have you helped that type of person, like a
Yes.
scientist who is like just too cognitive, too
Yeah.
mindset centered? Can
Yeah.
you tell a little bit about like how you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think, well, I take them into nature to get them back to their nature. It's as easy as that.
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't have an office. The forest and the countryside, that's my office. I take people outside, and then people are amazed by the effects that being outside has on them without me asking questions. So, and then I just add the asking questions and the feeling the energy. So the energy work, looking at a person from a holistic perspective, because as an entire thing instead of a head or a body or an arm or something. So this is integral part, being also an integral part of the bigger thing, nature, Earth. And yeah, that's how I do my best to help people. And I think science is just like a very extreme example of the society we live in. And in science, people only look at things they can see.
right.
And what's non-measurable, so no zeros or one can be added to it, that doesn't exist
Yeah,
if you put it really, really black and white. And I think it's interesting, for instance, if you walk into a forest with somebody, and then I ask people, so what do you see? Just look around, what do you see? And then people will say, if you're lucky, people will say, yeah, I see trees and I see hills and valleys, grass, maybe a bird or a squirrel or whatever. But they will never say, I see the empty spaces between the trees, or I see the air or whatever. Because we are learned, this system is trained to look at the things that are visible, tangible.
yeah.
And the interesting thing is that there is something in between those trees, which isn't measurable yet, maybe in a scientific way, but it's there. It's energy.
Well, see, that's a question I asked the guy that made this thing, and he said everything in nature they can measure the frequency, and this is what part of what I'm trying to get to, because I was literally just watching a video from Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, and they were saying the most impactful things in our lives are the things that we can't see, right? Like love and anger, right?
Yes.
So those are impacting your lives. You can't really see it, right? We're doing this Zoom video. You can't see what's actually creating this,
No.
but it's an electric frequency. Like this machine is a frequency generator. And so bridging that gap between the scientific world is like what we can only see and what we can't see. So are you doing that when you bring them into nature, like basically feel the energy of nature and bringing it into the soul or the spirit or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I'm doing my best to do that, because I think that works. And that's what you started out with when you were introducing me, like bridging the gap between experience-based and evidence-based and the thing in between, because that's the interesting part. I can talk about science, and that's interesting and necessary, and I can talk about vague hippie stuff, which to me is not as vague as it used to be, but the thing in between is what people are looking for. The intangible, tangible stuff. And by taking people into nature, helping them with breath work, letting them be connected to their own system, their own body again, and by that to nature, letting them take off their shoes and walk on their bare feet, which a lot of people have never done before, because you wear shoes because that's what society dictates. You wear shoes. And then people take them off and they're like, oh, this hurts on my feet. It's, hey, you're feeling something now. Oh, yeah, I am. And so you raise the awareness of all the signals that this body and nature is sending you. Then you can increase connection and increase happiness. And as Wim says, help people living a more happy, healthy, and strong life. Enlightenment.
Yeah, and the value of that is incredible. Now, one quick question about the feet. I don't know if you've researched any of that or studied it, but the nerve endings on the feet and the connection to the cognitive aspect, and like how even just walking barefoot as a child makes you smarter, and because it's like firing all these the nerve endings on your feet, which are triggering parts of the brain. Have you ever looked into that and researched that?
No, only by experiencing it firsthand. I haven't read much about it. I know there is a lot of data there too, but that's a downside. There is so much knowledge that you can only choose things that to look into. But what I feel when I walk into the forest around back here, I take off my shoes. I feel the connection. I feel the energy go through this system. And even further, because the physical limitations of your body are not the end of the energy that you're a part of, and you can feel that. And that might sound vague and spiritual to some people, but if you open up to that experience and just go out there, take off those shoes, and be open to the experience, and you can actually start feeling that. It's
Awesome.
not that complicated.
So kind of bring that full circle, this being about healing hacks, that is one of your healing hacks, you'd say, is like going out in nature and reconnecting with the earth and building that energy up.
Not only with earth, also with the air, the things that we can't see, because we can see earth again. We see the soil, we see the bottom that our feet are standing on, but we're constantly surrounded by energy, which is in the air outside as well as inside here. And the more you can connect with that, the trees, the wind, whatever, the more connection you will have, and the more peace of mind you will get, the better balance your body will be. So then if you meet a stressor, because we all meet stress in our lives, you find new and better ways to deal with the stressors at hand. And this happy, healthy life, and go life hacking for a living for the rest of your life.
Awesome, man. Is there anything that you use maybe as lifestyle hacks, healing hacks, things that are just as simple as you're talking? Really, the idea is that they're natural things that people can do, like anytime, anywhere, to just feel better.
Breathe consciously.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Stating out the obvious.
Yeah. Well, you know what I wanted to say is really the Wim Hof practitioners, or people who are teaching breath work, are really on the front lines of the health revolution, I should say, because what we're finding out is these frequencies that we're being exposed to now are actually preventing oxygen uptake in the cells. So as we teach people to breathe, I think that's why this is kind of taking off, is like people need more oxygen. So like you said, for me, it was a game changer. Breathing, connection with nature. This has been awesome. We're at the bottom of the hour. Is there any last maybe inspirational things, mindset tips before we disconnect here?
Well, then you get to the take home message. It's like, go out there. It's make things less complicated. We are overcomplicating almost everything in our life, which leads to this huge amount of limiting beliefs in your head. And you can read a lot of books about it, and that's interesting, but just go there, go out there, go outside of your comfort zone, be open to experiencing new things, go jump out of an airplane wearing a parachute, go face your fears, and go look what's on the other side of that fear, because you can learn a lot there. And that's mindset. Let go of the limiting beliefs here, be open, connect with yourself, with people outside, and with nature outside, and just be happy and live now.
Take a cold shower.
Right? Take a cold shower. Why not? Yeah.
All right. Awesome, Bart. It has been real, and thank you so much for being here. Anybody, how can they get connected with you?
It's really easy. You can Google me, and I have this site. I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook. My cell phone number is even out there. So and that's also to me important, that I want to be I want to be available. People can reach me for questions, guidance, whatever. So just Google me, and my name will pop up, and if I can help, I can help.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Cool.